afternoon, everybody. We're live from Macungie, Pennsylvania. Today we're going to talk all about gardening. Hope everybody's having a good afternoon, good day so far. It's a bit rainy here, but that's okay. Rain's a good thing. We need rain occasionally, right?
Occasionally.
Yeah, we don't need the flooding, but
Could have used it last summer for our garden. We had at least like a 6-week drought.
True.
So I wouldn't have minded having a little bit.
A little bit of it then, instead of at the end of the season. Well, that's why you try to plan your garden the best you can and do what you can, right? Sometimes you have to do some extra watering, and other times it's just in the hands of Mother Nature. Some places they get too much rain, and they can't dry it out. Like potatoes, they'll rot if they get too much water in the ground.
So I see you've got your burpee seed catalog on your lap.
Yeah, it finally came. So I was doing some planning for our garden. I know we were looking at doing tomatoes again, some green pepper, bell peppers, green and red bell peppers, and I know we have one jalapeno plant. So one of the things that we learned this past year was peppers are perennials. I didn't know this until I watched a YouTube channel. And I found that out. So you can actually dig your peppers up at the end of the season before you get frost, assuming you get frost where you live, and you can dig them up. And there's a video that shows you how you can, trim the branches off so that you can bring them inside. And basically, you store them in a place for a week in the dark area, and then you put them on a southern-facing window. That's where you get your sun in the wintertime, so that they get some sun, and then they grow over time. And then supposedly, when you put them out in the spring after they have adjusted, you'll get an extra crop of peppers. And if anybody's grown peppers before, peppers take a long time to grow. So a lot of times you plant them, early, at least for us, February is when we normally plant them, March.
Yeah, mid-February, late February is probably a good time for us.
And then you put them out, and you might get 1 or 2 harvests depending on when the frost comes. I know when we started our garden 2 years ago, we ended up getting a second batch of peppers because we didn't get frost until November. This past season, we got frost in October, which is more than normal. So we had to end our harvest early. So we had to cut off all our tomatoes and bring on all our pumpkins, which you can self-ripen pumpkins. If you didn't know that, as long as they have a little bit of orange on them, your typical jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, you can bring them in and put them outside and sunbathe them, put the green sides up towards the sun, and they will turn orange. It'll take some time and effort, but they will turn. Now, you may lose some over the long-term storage, but that tends to be the way it goes when you store stuff for the long term. Yeah, this year, I don't think we lost any, but we didn't have as many as the previous year.
We did lose, we did lose some while they were ripening.
Oh, we lost the little baby one. Forgot about that.
I think there were a couple. They just kind of started.
Got soft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once they ripened, I don't think we lost any. I think we were better about getting them processed sooner too.
Well, it helped we didn't have 30 to process.
Yeah, there was less.
And they were smaller. But I actually find the smaller ones harder to process because you have a lot more less pumpkin to actually to peel it off, to peel it. So it's harder to get the inner goo off of them.
I noticed too last year that the later it got for processing them, the drier they got.
Yeah, they dry out and they also get harder. The skin toughens up. I forget what the technical term is. It's basically what you do for potatoes and stuff. You let them sit and they get a harder shell essentially. There's a term for it, but I'm drawing a blank on it. But that allows you to store it longer term. And same thing goes for pumpkins, and I think it goes for other squashes like acorn squash. What's the other one? Is it neck pumpkins? I'm not quite sure.
It could be.
Different squashes you can store long term. I know this. You don't want to ever store your onions and potatoes together because the onions will make your potatoes sprout. So yeah, I just got my seed catalogs are nice because then you can, get some ideas about what might grow better in your area. Sometimes you might want to go for a hybrid if you're having issues with pests or, other issues. One of the issues that we tend to get, depending on what part of the season, is like powdery mildew. It's a common thing that you get on squash, especially pumpkins. Essentially, basically, the moisture doesn't get off the leaves fast enough before it gets dark, and it basically the spores germinate on the leaves from the ground. So there are certain things are, hybrid and stuff can be resistant to disease. I know with our cucumbers this past year and the zucchini, we had, I think they call it cucumber beetles. They were, I don't know if you actually saw them this year or not, but this past year was the yellow beetles with the black on them.
Okay.
They destroyed our zucchini flowers, and
Yeah.
I suspect they're cucumber beetles, and that's part of the reason why the cucumbers didn't do so good. Besides the fact we had a drought, and then we also had a heat wave.
And we planted them late on top of it all, so I think timing is everything when it comes to the pests.
Well, that, and also we moved our garden, so like the soil wasn't as good. So I think it was a combination of factors that just didn't work out as well as we had hoped.
Yeah, it was a tough year for garden.
I know we had brought some of the compost down for the potatoes, and the potatoes actually did pretty good. We got more potatoes than we planted, which is always good. The beans, we planted fairly late, and we still managed to get some tender green beans, which was nice. For those that don't know, I usually hate green beans. I am one of those, I will push them around my plate and not eat them if I can avoid it normally kind of person. But these green beans were so good, I was eating them raw. I put a little bit of ranch in a cup and just dipped them in the ranch. I was going to town. And then later that day, I got sick. I ate too many of them. So if you're like me, don't overdose on green beans when you're not used to eating them, because your GI won't be able to handle it. But they're really good cooked in butter, though, like in a frying pan. They're so good. Like low simmered in butter.
Well, that's really good. You like them.
Yeah.
Because they do grow well in our area. I've always had good luck growing the green snap beans.
Yeah, you said peas also grow really well too.
Yeah, the key for them is to get them in on time.
Yeah, we grew them late just to try to help, because we had some old peas to help nitrogen fix the soil, just because we did move our garden, so our soil is probably not ideal. I think that could have been part of the reason why some of our tomatoes didn't do so well. Besides the fact we got hit by blight, because we did finally get rain near the end of the season, and it just was so much rain that all our tomatoes got blight. So we did a treatment for blight, a natural treatment, which used baking soda, Dawn dish soap, water, and a little bit of vegetable oil.
Right, I remember the oil.
And we used a hose and sprayed down all of our... Well, what you do is you cut off the worst parts of the blight, like all the leaves that you can pull off, make sure you don't entirely de-leaf your plant, and then you spray this concoction on it when you know you're not going to get rain for a few days, and then you leave it on, and it's supposed to make a difference. I think it did help. It didn't eliminate it, but I think it did make a difference. The only way that I've seen that people have been able to actually prevent blight from coming back is because it lives in the soil. I'm not sure if it's a bacteria or fungus or whatever, but it lives in the soil. So one of the things that some people do in the springtime, or even at the end of fall, is they'll get one of those flame torches and burn the areas that had blight, because that's the only way to effectively kill it, to keep it from coming back. But that's something you have to be very careful about, and obviously take precautions so you don't cause a fire to go anywhere you don't want it to go. So don't do that at home without proper precautions, and know how to do that before you try to do that method. So.
My understanding is if you do that in the early spring, it'll also help you with
the weeds.
The weeds, because you'll be able to burn the seeds that are at the surface of the soil.
Yeah.
From any weeds. And then of course we got plenty of weeds. So
yeah.
that helps you keep the weeds down a little bit.
Yep, that's a very good point. I learned that from Doug and Stacy, who do like homesteading. They recommended that, and also some other people do that as well. I'm trying to look up Brian's.
Yeah, he went around their garden and he torched everything. And it seemed like a good idea. Especially to kill the blight, because that seems to be a persistent problem.
Yeah, it's really well known. It's very common. You can get early blight, you can get blight in the middle of the season, and then you can get late blight. It basically looks like your plant's dying. It's kind of yellow, spotty, brown. It just, one of the tips that I've learned from Next Level Gardening on YouTube was when you put your tomatoes out, they say like once your tomatoes are like 2 feet tall, like get rid of all the lower branches like a foot off the ground, because what happens is when you water your tomatoes is you're splashing that bacteria from the soil up onto your plant, and that's how the blight's getting on your plant. And it might not even be you watering, it could be Mother Nature watering it with rain. The rain just splashes that up, and those microorganisms get up on your leaves, and then they start attacking them.
So if you cover the ground with, say, grass clippings,
they say if you use mulch, that helps a lot. They say the downside though is if your mulch is contaminated with blight, it won't protect your plants.
because it can get moldy too.
Yeah. So like
grass clippings will do that if you just put them in a pile.
Yeah. So I think Next Level Gardening, he actually uses wood chips for his mulch, like actual wood chip mulch rather than grass mulch.
Now, I thought that wood chips would be bad for the garden. Don't they deplete the nitrogen when they decompose?
I don't know about that. I'd have to look into that. I know they make other mulches. I don't know a lot about mulches. But yeah, mulching can help.
You want to keep the soil bacteria from getting up on the plant.
Well, some people use those, what do they call it? The canvas stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Like
put that around the base of the plant.
Yeah. They'll make cutouts for their plants and put it in there. Or you have like the black canvas. I'm not
How
sure.
about if you put down newspaper? Would that help too? Because I did that with our tomatoes early in the season.
I don't know. I would think doing something would be better than doing nothing. The key is to not have the water splash up onto the plant. So I think part of it is we weren't as careful with our watering because we had so much watering to do. Like you were having to fill the drum twice a day to keep them alive. So
Yeah, we don't have running water in the backyard, so we had to go get
we
water.
had to get a drum full of water and then use the hose and the pump and pump it out. So we probably were not as careful with our watering than we should have been, because you don't want your plants to be sitting there wet. You really want to water at the base of your plants, you know.
So you don't really want to do it in the evening before it gets dark. You want to do it earlier in the day.
Yeah, that's another way to prevent powdery mildew too.
You don't keep it wet overnight.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you can't do anything to protect against dew. Dew is gonna, be dew. So.
But that'll tend to be on the upper parts of the plants,
Yeah.
where they get more air circulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weather's been pretty mild. You can start digging the garden now, right?
Yeah, and like another thing you can do if you have time or you want to is you can do winter overcropping, I think is what they call it, where you basically plant winter crops that you are using just to refertilize the soil. So we planted some, rye.
Rye, yeah.
Planted some rye. Our friend gave us some rye. Winter rye, they call it. So basically you plant it late in the fall, and it grows a little bit during the winter, and then it grows a lot more in the spring, and then you cut it at a certain stage in the spring, and then you just let it decompose, and it adds good stuff to your soil, which will help.
It's
your garden.
organic matter.
Yeah, which is really good for your soil. And some people do like other winter crops that you can do are radishes. I think barley is another one. There's a clover, I think it's red clover, that you can do that has really pretty flowers.
And clover is another one that will help put nitrogen back in the soil too.
Yeah.
Which as you may know, nitrogen fertilizers are getting expensive, and they're getting more regulation. So natural ways of getting nitrogen back in the soil are important to know.
Yeah, and beans and legumes, I think, also put that back into.
Yeah, things like peas, beans and peas. Those are two big ones. They will actually, through the bacteria that grow on the roots of those plants, will actually pull nitrogen out of the air. So it's kind of a natural chemical process that takes place there.
Which is really cool.
Because when you think about it, we talk about nitrogen fertilizer shortages. The air we breathe is about almost 80% nitrogen. It's all around us, the nitrogen that we need.
Yeah.
We just have to get it out of the air into the soil. And legumes are really cool that's a natural process to do that. And then you can have plants like corn that really want or need a lot of nitrogen. You can make it available to them.
Yeah, potatoes love being planted next to beans. So we planted our potatoes, we alternated potato and bean rows this year, and it seemed to work pretty good. The potatoes seem to grow pretty well.
Yeah, I've done alternating rows of corn and beans. I know there's different things that people have tried.
Well, there's the Three Sisters that some people recommend, where you do corn, beans, and squash. Typically pumpkins, but you can do other things like yellow squash or acorn squash.
I think the big challenge is having enough room to get in there to harvest things when you intermix stuff like corn and beans.
Yeah.
You don't want to be able to harvest the beans, but you don't want to break your corn stalks to do it.
I think maybe this year we should try some kind of trellis system or some kind of better hanging system to support them, because the rope didn't work so well last year.
For the beans?
Yeah. I mean, it was better than nothing, but I don't know. I wonder what other beans we should grow, because we did tender green. The Blue Lake ones didn't have enough time to ripen before the frost, unfortunately.
Pole beans are an option, especially if you have limited space, because they grow up. You don't have a lot of ground space. Take advantage of using vertical space.
Yeah, so pole beans and bush beans are considered snap beans, or green beans. Basically, they snap when you bend them. Whereas lima beans or butter beans are, the smaller beans that are more tender.
I think I've grown lima beans once, many years ago. They weren't hard to grow either, as I recall.
No, supposedly
we weren't fans of it. My dad liked lima beans, but I didn't care for them.
I'm not a lima bean person, but you said your dad said they're better in the garden, so maybe I could be convinced. Everything tastes better in the garden.
Everything tastes better if you grow it in your garden, yes.
Like, tomatoes are amazing. Oh, I love our sweetie tomatoes that are like grape tomatoes that we grow. They're so sweet that you want to eat them like grapes. Like, they're just so, you can't stop yourself, But yeah, for the beans, I was thinking maybe we should try the Blue Lake 274, which is an heirloom one. Because they harvest them pretty fast, 58 days.
I think I've grown that one in the past. I'm not sure though. One of those versions I grew. I also grew the yellow snap beans.
Oh yeah, I did see those. Those are called, well, at least the ones in the catalog, they're called Gold Mine.
They were a somewhat different flavor.
What I find really cool is the purple ones. These ones are called Purple Queens. They're heirloom. They say that they're 7-inch long purple beans that turn green after cooking. How cool is that? They're purple and then you cook them and they turn green. That's so cool. But yeah, there's Blue Lake 47, which is a really good favorite that people like. Because if you pick beans, they'll keep growing more and more. One thing I learned last night while I was watching some YouTube videos is cucumber plants aren't meant to keep giving you tons of cucumbers. That's why you have to keep planting cucumber plants. Like, they're not meant to just, some of them are only meant to give you
there is a technique called succession planting where you
Yeah, that's what they were recommending. Like for like the first 6 weeks, like plant them every week.
you have your early spring crops mature, and then when they're done, you put in something else. You don't just plant one thing in one spot of the garden for the year. Some spots in the garden you can plant twice or maybe even 3 times in a season, depending on what you choose.
Yeah.
You get something in that grows early spring, and then that comes in, and then maybe you've got some space, and then you can plant some more cucumbers.
Dill is something that grows really well around here, at least for us. Or when I transplanted our dill, it grew like really fast. That thing was like almost 2 feet tall. It was big.
It was a big plant. Yeah.
Yeah, it started turning into a tree.
It looked healthy.
Yeah.
I like the smell.
I kind of feel bad. I brought it in and it's not doing so well.
Was it just one plant you brought in?
Well, that and the baby shoot that was on the side of it, but even that, it's because I forgot to water them for a day and a half.
No.
And they're not looking so hot now, but it still smells really, really good. But dills are good. I forget which insect it protects for potatoes, but if you plant dill near potatoes, it helps keep one of the insects that likes to go for potato plants away. So that's called companion planting. I don't know a lot about it. I'm not an expert in gardening. I'm just learning as we go and just reading things and watching videos.
Yeah, that also refers to planting things together like corn and beans.
Yeah, and
or you mentioned potatoes and beans.
Yeah, because potatoes will eat up a lot of nitrogen, so they like being near beans. I just saw someone say the other day that carrots and tomatoes like being planted near each other, which I did not know that. That's something I wanted. Never got to it. Basil, parsley, oregano. I mean, I have oregano from 2 years ago that's still happily growing inside. And parsley. My parsley plant's over 2 years old now. I would still have basil if I didn't let it flower. Basil will stop producing if you let it go to seed, which is a bummer.
I remember planting carrots maybe midsummer, and my aunt used to be an avid gardener. She and her husband always had a nice garden in the backyard. She told me I was a little late on my carrots, but I forget what time. It was like November sometime. I don't know what I was doing in the garden. Maybe I was putting mulch on or leaves or whatever. But I noticed I had, because they had matured into the fall.
Yeah, carrots is one of those crops that can grow into the fall, and actually some people say I don't know if it's all varieties or only certain kinds, that even get a little bit of frost on them and it sweetens them up. Like even some potatoes will even sweeten up after the first, like mild frost, not like hardcore frost, that you can leave them in the ground and they'll sweeten up a little more.
My aunt was kind of surprised, like, what?
You got carrots?
You got carrots in November?
Yep.
She thought I was way too late to try to plant carrots.
That's funny.
And I guess I was kind of late because it was well after the frost when they finally matured. And I guess I kind of wrote them off and kind of forgot about them. And I discovered them when I saw the roots sticking out.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of like the surprise tomatoes that we had in the garden this year, in our old garden, and potatoes. But the surprise potatoes were kind of a joke. We got one potato out of that. But the surprise tomatoes, we got a decent amount. I don't know. Maybe, if I had to guess, maybe a pound or 2 of tomatoes from them.
Our volunteer pumpkins really were the only ones we got.
Not grow well at all. The volunteer pumpkins gave us, I think, in like 6 pounds. So they were not very big, whereas the previous season we got, they were averaging between 7 and 15 pounds, with a few of them being in the mid-20s. So, but that's okay, because we're still eating through a lot of pumpkins, so in that regard, it was kind of a blessing, because I don't know where we'd store it all.
Yeah, we picked the wrong year to move the garden. We moved it because it was getting too much shade. But I think with the weather we had this last summer, the shade would have actually been beneficial.
Yeah, because the drought and the heat, just the constant scorching of the sun, just kind of scorched everything.
The new area, the soil conditions just weren't good enough to keep things moist. So
Yeah.
we ended up, everything just baked, essentially.
Yeah, the watermelon did poorly, but I think that's because we didn't get enough water.
So much for surviving the apocalypse with our own garden, huh?
Yeah. We'd be rather hungry. So yeah, I think we'll do tomatoes again. We'll plant the peppers that we have inside. So we have 2 bell peppers and 1 jalapeno. I don't know if we really want to plant more than that.
I don't know. I think maybe we should. Are we still eating canned peppers from before?
You're drowning in jalapenos.
Well, jalapenos, yes.
But regular peppers, we only canned, I think, maybe 2 or 3 cans this year. We got less than half of what we got last year.
So I think maybe we should plant a few more green peppers. Start a few more from seed.
Yeah. I want to try lettuce again. Our lettuce didn't do so well last year. I don't know if I just didn't have the right conditions for the germination.
You tried that indoors, though.
Yeah. Because I was hoping to jumpstart it.
Yeah, I don't know if people have luck doing that.
Oh, look, there's purple peppers. I didn't know there's purple peppers. There's a lot of different peppers. Carnival blend. Here's the description for it. Carnival blend. When you plant some of these, some will turn out gold or orange. Others will be red, purple, or ivory. Most will start out as green. And they're tasty as soon as they reach their full size. Oh, interesting. Didn't know you could get purple bell peppers. We normally grow the California Wonder ones, which are heirlooms. But you can also grow hot peppers too. I'm not a big fan of spicy hot peppers.
Yeah.
Which ones are the sweet peppers that you get in like restaurants?
I'm not sure.
You know what I'm talking about though, like
Yeah, I'm not sure, no.
they're like on like I don't know, steak sandwiches and stuff. Maybe they're sweet stuff hybrid.
I don't know. They're a small pepper.
Yeah, I know they're skinny.
They're smaller,
Maybe they're
like
banana
the jalapenos.
peppers?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that could be it.
Sweet banana. 6 to 7 inch yellow fruit matures to orange and red. Old-fashioned favorite with mild flavor. Terrific for pickling. Oh yeah, that's right. You can pickle them too. So you can make pickles. You can also make pickled jalapenos. You can actually pickle watermelon rind, like turn them into like pickles, which I didn't know that either. They call them watermelon pickles.
We definitely want to try to make pickles this season.
I know. I was so excited to do pickles last year, and we got maybe 4 baby cucumbers, and that was it.
I just saw what pickles are costing in the store last night.
Oh, I know. It's insane. The organic ones are what, like 8 something? It's crazy. That's the other thing you have to decide when you do a garden. You know, what kind of seeds do you want to grow? Do you want to grow any kind of seed, or do you want to grow non-GMO, heirloom? Heirloom ones basically mean if you plant them and you save the seeds, they should grow true to what they were, assuming they don't get cross-pollinated with another variety. So if you grow like heirloom tomatoes, but you grow like 3 different varieties, the only way that I know of to save the seeds that they don't cross-pollinate is you literally gotta cover the blossom once they start growing into a tomato. So that way you can know that tomato's that specific variety. But I don't know how you tell with the bees. The guy was saying put covers over the blossoms. But I don't know. Do you know anything about that?
No, I really don't. All that magic of pollination.
Because I know some of the volunteer tomatoes that we had this year were certainly not what we planted last year.
Well, I think
They were like globes.
Well, the originals were hybrids.
Yeah, I know, but the sweeties weren't.
No?
No. The only one that was a hybrid was the early birds. The early bird VF hybrid.
So you're thinking they were cross-pollinated.
The Romas were organic, and I don't think were a hybrid, and the sweeties were organic, and I don't think they were a hybrid. So I think what happened is, I'm guessing, a sweetie pollinated with a Roma or an early bird, and we ended up with golf balls. Because the fruits were like baby golf balls. They were bigger than the sweeties, but they were not really sweetie shaped, you know. That's something I want to look into for this year is seed saving. How hard it is or easy it is to save seeds.
It's kind of like the next level of being self-sufficient.
Yeah. We do that with the pumpkin seeds. Like we grow our pumpkins from the pumpkin seeds.
Buying seeds isn't cheap anymore either.
No. There's one hybrid cucumber that someone was recommending online called the Party Time hybrid. Makes seedless cucumbers, and also doesn't require, it's self-fertile, meaning it doesn't require the male blossom to pollinate the female blossom. So they make fruit no matter what, which is nice. Ours that we planted last year, the pickling ones, they needed to have the male blossom pollinate the female blossom in order to make any fruit. Whereas this hybrid, you don't have to have that, which is kind of interesting.
Coming up to Crumsville, going west on Old US 22.
Radishes are another good thing that you can plant in your garden.
I always thought of them as one of the first things I would plant. When I was planting gardens years ago, radishes were kind of a staple. I didn't like them. I didn't eat them. I grew them, but...
I heard they're really good if you roast them in the oven. It gets rid of some of that radishy flavor, because I personally find they're a bit spicy.
Yeah. I didn't care for that when I was growing them when I was a kid and teenager.
I hear the leaves are good to eat, though, like on salads. But I don't know if they're bitter or not. I haven't had them in a long time. So radishes is another option. Beets, if you like beets.
I know you can eat the leaves on the beets.
Yes, you can. There's certain beets that are better if you want to grow them for like the greenery, the leaves, for like salads. You typically want a smaller beet that grows more greens rather than beets. I know there's some tricks out there. You can fertilize them a certain way to encourage more leaf growth or more beet growth, depending on your preference. I don't remember the specifics off the top of my head.
I would guess more nitrogen would promote the leaf growth, and more phosphorus and potassium would promote the root growth.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, beets are good, radishes are good, carrots. I want to definitely do carrots. People that want to do broccoli, you typically have to do that in the spring and fall because broccoli does not like the heat.
Yeah, it's a cool weather guy.
It's a cool weather crop.
Yeah.
Cabbage, I know, is good for like making fermented foods and such, and it also prefers to be early spring and late midsummer. So, I would assume cauliflower is probably the same thing, because they're similar. Corn, I think you have to start early because corn takes a long time.
Mid-May in this climate, where we got the last frost, usually around the end of April. Sometimes a little earlier, but usually early to mid-May is a good time to plant corn here in eastern Pennsylvania. Some of them take 90 days plus to mature, so
yeah,
you got to get them going. Now there's some early versions, early sun glow, 60 some days for that one.
Yeah, there are some that take less. Let's see, we got...
If you're really into planting corn, you can do 2 or 3 varieties, and you can time them in a way that you get a pretty long season of fresh corn.
The ones in the Burpee catalog that are early are the Northern Extra Sweet Hybrid, which does 67 days. That's a early yellow corn. That's 9-inch ears. And then they also have On Deck Hybrid. This one's great if you live in a place that doesn't have you don't have a lot of land. But you have a deck. You can actually grow this one on your deck. It's a bicolor variety that you can grow on your deck, patio, or terrace in a 24-inch container. You plant 9 seeds, and you'll get about 2 ears from each stalk. So it'll be 7-8 inches long. So that's not bad,
I thought you needed a lot of corn though to get good pollination.
That's what I would have thought. They say plant 9 seeds in a 24-inch container. So this is the On Deck Hybrid. I mean, I guess if you have other flowers and stuff that attract the bees, maybe get away with it. But yeah, I have read that you should don't plant your corn in rows. They say it's better to do it in grouping rather than rows.
The rule that I tried to follow was to make the plot square. So, rather than one really long row, it's better to do multiple short rows.
Yeah.
So
it's more like a group.
The most compact planting arrangement would be a square.
Yeah.
You say you've got a row that's 10 feet long, then you want to have the rows of corn, enough of those so that you have about a 10 by 10 area, and that gives you the best results for pollination.
Yeah.
I forget the spacing between the rows when you do it like that. Is it like 2 feet maybe?
That I'm not sure.
So you might get 5 rows of corn in a 10 by 10 square.
I know cucumbers for pickling. They say it's better to plant the pickling cucumbers than the other cucumbers, just because they store better if you want to preserve them. Squash is another thing you can grow. Pumpkins, yellow squash, eggplant is something that sounds interesting. I almost wonder if this shooting star eggplant is the one that our friend gave us. There was the purple ones, those little purple ones that were so good.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've planted eggplant. I remember doing cantaloupe and watermelon and eggplant. I don't know how that
Cantaloupe.
went. Yeah.
There's garlic. You can do garlic, onions, leeks, kale. I'm not a big kale person. I prefer lettuce. Spinach is another thing you can grow. And you can grow lettuce and spinach inside too. Onions, you have to check where you live because there are different types of onions. So you have to determine, they call it long day, intermediate day, and short day, depending on where you live in the United States, as to when you need to plant your onions and which types. Onions are bulbs, just like garlic are. And of course you got peas, which we already talked about, and peppers. Potatoes are always good. That's a really good storage crop too. You can store potatoes over the winter. Sweet potatoes are also really good, but you have to start those from slips. Basically, you gotta, put your pepper in some dirt and keep it moist and allow it to grow so it gets shoots coming out of it. And then you plant those. Those are called slips. Some people use different methods. Sometimes they'll put their sweet potato into a glass of water with toothpicks poked through it, but sometimes that's got mixed results. There's plenty of videos out there that will show you how to do it, but they take a long time to grow. But I hear they grow really, really well.
Yeah, I've never tried it.
People always say to try to grow something new every year you do a garden, just so you increase your knowledge and add some more flavor to your diet and variety. And the one guy was recommending doing shallots, which I was like, never thought about that. Because shallots are really expensive in the grocery store.
You always start with the stuff you like to eat.
Yeah, definitely do the things that you like to eat, for sure. The last thing you want to do is put all that energy or try to put all that energy into something you don't like and be like, eh.
You just won't want to do it.
Yeah. And here acorn squash stores really well, so does butternut squash. And you can also grow gourds too. Like if you are into fall decorations, you can do that. And there's tons and tons of tomatoes, so you can, shop around to your heart's content for finding the right tomato. And, of course, then you can make your own homemade tomato sauce, ketchup. You can can it, which is nice.
Tomatoes are a lot less expensive. You can start them from seed.
Yeah, it's a lot better than buying pre-made, pre-grown plants at the nursery. Watermelons are nice, but they can be a bit tricky. You gotta make sure they get enough water. What's nice is Burpee actually has a thing now this year that you can actually do mix and match plants. So you can get seeds and you can also get actual plants. So you can mix and match and get a bundle of plants for $24.96, or get more than 2 bundles. They drop the price down. So that's kind of cool. So if you don't want to have to do the seeds, you can actually get plants. So that's kind of cool for those that may not have as much time to do the grow lights inside to get their seedlings up and running. It's nice to be able to get plants. And herbs are easy to grow inside. Like I said, basil is one option. You can do chives. There's all sorts of herbs that you can do. But make sure you grow ones that you like. You can do mint, dill, cilantro, thyme, tea if you're into tea, oregano. Some people even go gardening. They do berries and stuff too. That's a lot of work. And don't forget flowers. Flowers help bring the bees. So without bees, you don't have food. You need the bees. Otherwise you got to be the bee. Which, trust me, you don't want to do that. That'll take a long time to self-pollinate all your food.
When there's so much else to do in the garden anyway.
Yeah. Though I've heard you can do it on your cucumbers that have male and female flowers. Like if it doesn't look like your bees are doing their job, you can self-pollinate them. I think with a Q-tip is what the guy was recommending. That you can transfer the pollen and get them to grow that way. But it's a time-consuming process. And if you've ever grown cucumbers, they're a bit prickly, so it's kind of like touching a spiny pumpkin. It's kind of goes right through your gloves. So yeah. Hopefully you start planting your garden, and hopefully you order some seeds if you don't already have some, and hopefully you can start growing some food to help your family out this year, because pricing of everything is going up, and we all know that the last few years shelves have been empty, so every bit helps. And look online, you can get seed catalogs from different growers. Burpee's just one of them. There's all sorts of companies out there. Just research, go with whatever you think's best. And you can also go to your local farm and feed stores. They typically have seeds. I'm going to guess they probably start having them out soon, if they don't already. And they'll have trays and potting mix and soil and such.
Sometimes it's just easier to go to the Walmart or the Home Depot or the Lowe's.
Yeah, there's that option too.
If you don't plan ahead.
Yep. Typically, well, I say typically. Usually, like if you buy bigger packets online, they're cheaper than in the stores. But if you don't know what you want to do until the last minute, then the in-store option's a good one.
Remember we got those pumpkins from 2 years ago for like 25 cents for a pack of seeds that were on discount.
Yeah, we got them late in the season, and I was like, I was taking forever looking at them. My dad's like, come on already, just pick out what you want. And then the lady came over and marked it down. I'm like, well, now it's a quarter of the price. Can I pick out some more?
She marked it down from 50 cents to 25.
Yeah, so I ended up getting beets, pumpkins, bunching onions, and who's the fourth one? Watermelon. The watermelon took 2 tries for me to actually get sprouted. I will say this, watermelon needs to have very warm temperatures to sprout, and our house was not warm enough inside for it to sprout, so that's part of the reason why it didn't sprout. We had to have it out on the sidewalk in the sun in order for it to germinate. So make sure if you're growing watermelon, it's really, really warm. 70 degrees is not cutting it. likes its heat. Alright, I guess, is there anything else you can think of?
Oh, there's always something. But
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot with gardening. I mean, there's always fruit trees and stuff, but I was thinking more just the normal stuff in the garden.
it's one thing about gardening is you really get into it. There's all kinds of stuff. You'll never run out of ideas of things to do.
Yeah.
And it's good. Gets you out there, enjoying the outdoors.
I guess the one thing I would say is always make sure you check for ticks when you go outside. If you can, wear some kind of tick spray or long pants, long sleeves, high socks, something, because you don't want to get Lyme disease. It's not fun. And have the right tools too, Tools can make your job so much easier, Don't use a dull shovel. There's different tools out there, different things that can make your job easier. Obviously it costs money, but it'll pay off in a few years when you have the right tools, and you'll be enjoying homegrown food, which is hard to beat. And if you learn how to preserve it, whether you're freezing it, canning it, pickling it, what do they call it when they dry it? I guess, is it freeze-dried? I'm not sure.
Freeze process.
It's in jars and stuff, and they'll last a long time.
Never thought about doing.
The other night.
The freezer works good for a lot of stuff.
Into the canning is out, your freezer is gonna thaw.
Well, yes.
Downside, but yeah.
But it is convenient.
Yeah, frozen green beans are really good. You just blanch them and then you freeze them. I think you do that with corn as well. I'm sure it works for peas. So, yeah.
Canning is a lot of work, though. And it's not so bad, but it's still a process too.
And typically we like to can in batches because it's a lot of, like, you gotta wash your jars, you gotta get your food ready, get it hot, can it hot, and then process the lid top off, like the ring, and then clean it up and then label it and then store it. And you don't want to store your canned goods in the sun, like where light's hitting it. You want to keep them out of direct sunlight and not get too hot. So, alright, well, I guess we're gonna wrap it up for today, and maybe talk a little bit more about gardening next week, maybe. And if you got any questions or comments, feel free to. If you're planning on growing a garden, tell us what you're planning on growing. If you have a favorite variety of a certain, vegetable or fruit, let us know. It's always cool to bounce ideas off each other. And we'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.